I swear this is like my third attempt at trying to do this. Anyways, I created a TBR jar essentially for myself, but I guess I just wanted to talk about how I did it. First of all, I was going to take you through the process of doing it, but I already just finished it because midway things had changed. So this is really weird. I'm sorry. Hold on. All right, so TBR jars, they are pretty popular on BookTube, or different ways of kind of choosing what book you're going to read next. And I've kind of been playing with this idea for quite a while. This past year, I have been watching Emily Fox's Read It or Unhaul It series that she's doing, and she basically plucks a book from this giant TBR jar that she has created. Seeing how she actually color codes her selections made me start to think that maybe this is something that would actually work for me. See, most of the time I don't like to blind pick books because I'm very much like a moody reader and I like to know at least what genre I'm reading. So when I saw how she color coded it, I thought that was a brilliant idea. That's basically what I did. There are certain books that I did not put in the jar. So my whole thing is basically books that I kind of never gravitate towards, but I did pick them up for one reason or another. They obviously sounded really good at the time. They have since just been collecting dust. The books I did not put on the list are books that are series. There are a couple that are first in a series, but I'm very much on the fence of whether or not I'm going to like them, so I might not even continue on with the series, which would be fine with me. Or there's one book I put on there that's actually the second in a series. It's a very specific reason as to why maybe I added a book that's part of a series. I did not put any short story collections or anthologies. I have not put any nonfiction, and I'm not putting some other picks, for instance, War and Peace, Don Quixote, because I feel like those, you can't just you need some preparation. You can't just pluck it out of the jar and be like, okay, I'm gonna read it now. You definitely need to mentally wrap your head around that, make some preparations, tie up some loose ends before you sit down with one of those books. At least that's how I feel. So here's my little jar. It's not a giant jar. I didn't fold them up and everything. I just have these little sticks and just made little squares of color. I'm only sticking to 3 colors. The first one is green, which I've used for anything fantasy, science fiction. Oh, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. Green is for just general fiction, contemporary fiction, literary fiction, experimental fiction. Isn't that a genre? It's a genre. All those kind of in-between books, historical fiction, anything like that is all green. So it's very vague. Gray is for all of my fantasy. So fantasy also encompasses science fiction and anything supernatural. Things like that are all in gray. I actually ran out of papers. I don't have enough to do 1, 2, 3. Try to mix these up a little bit now. And then the last thing I did that I think is a little bit different than other people's TBR jars is I actually gave myself 2 selections. So on each piece of paper, I actually did it 2-sided. So the idea is that the genre is still the same, but I can pick between one or the other book. And I felt like that would save me. It was going to save me some paper. I got partially the way through and I realized I was going to run out of paper. So I went ahead and doubled up on them. And then I figured that I will cross out the one that I've read and then stick the thing back in there. And just mix it up again. So, but that way too, I feel like it might be a little bit easier if I have 1 or 2 options. And then I kind of tried to mix it up. So if I put a really thick book on one side, I'd put a smaller book on the other. So just in case I wasn't prepared for a giant book, that kind of helps with that a little bit. I'll probably finish this whole, get all the rest for tomorrow. But this is enough for now. So I figured I would go ahead and pluck one from the jar. And I have a big fantasy that I'm gonna read, so I think I am gonna go ahead and pick a fiction. I'm just gonna look for a green one. Oh, that is so funny. Okay, this is one of the first ones I stuck in here, and I'm actually really glad. That I picked it because they've been sitting, like they've been sitting on that little table with the intention to read next, like the last like month and a half. So the two choices were Death in the Family or The Gravedigger's Daughter, which this is a really old ratty book. Part of me wanted to prioritize this one just because I would like to get rid of this big dusty book. No, if right now I don't know if I want to go for a big fat book. What I understand about this book, it is also by Joyce Carol Oates. I read from a friend that this is a really good book. It's kind of like an epic family saga, I want to say. And who was a gravedigger, but the narrative starts out with the daughter as an adult, and I guess she's going to be narrating the story, telling the story, and then getting into her upbringing of when she, what it was like living with her dad. I'm not really sure, but that's all I guess from it. I have this one, Death in the Family, and I remember this being, I had started reading it, and I made it a decent way through. I made it like 100 pages in, and then I don't know what happened. I just abandoned it, and I remember it feeling kind of like a game of Clue. It's a thriller. So, a storm-struck island, a blood-soaked bed, a missing man, a senior investigator, Shayna Merchant believes a killer lurks among the island's elite group of guests, and that murder is a family affair. This kind of reminds me of a book that I'm already reading called the Inheritance Games. Okay, we'll start with this one. Good morning. I thought I would update a little bit of Death in the Family. I am not put together. It's first thing in the morning. Kids just got off to school and I have an appointment in a little while. So I'm just going to read a little bit while I drink my coffee this morning. But I'm only 14 pages in, and I have to say that I remember why I did not get rid of this book, because it actually is it jumps right in. It's about this investigator who has been called to this specific case. He's already working on a different case, but because of this man's background, they've called him to this case. It actually takes place on this island, and already 14 pages in, we kind of have a layout of the crime scene, and we are headed on this boat out to this island. When I think island, I think like it's secluded, like maybe one house, but it's not. I guess there's other residences out there as well, but either way, you have to take like this ferry out there. And so where we're just at, they're like, why commit a crime when it's so hard to get away? The scene is also like storming. Because it's not a spoiler, the crime scene that they're walking into is, there was this huge family estate, I guess, and there is this girlfriend woke up in bed by herself. Her boyfriend was supposed to be next to her, but instead there was a pool of blood, and this guy is just missing, just gone. My hair looks really bad, but I'm literally about to leave in like 10 minutes to go get my hair cut and everything. So yeah. Anyways, I am 43 pages in, and for a little bit there, I was thinking to myself, I'm really glad I gave this book a second chance. I'm really enjoying it. It's really addictive reading. You get right into the mystery. But I've just reached a point where I'm like, maybe I'm starting to remember why I put it down a while ago. So there's something really awkward about the investigation. I don't know if it's intentional. That's the thing. I don't know if it's intentional, and I guess that's what we'll just have to figure it out. The investigators go and look at the room where all the blood is. Shayna, sorry, I had said before the narrator was a male. It's actually a female, and her partner, I guess she's like a lead senior investigator or senior detective, and her partner Tim is accompanying her. Anyways, her name is Shayna. While she's in the room scoping everything out, she's making note of, the windows and the doors and typical things. And briefly mentions the shiny sheets where like the pool of blood is. Like there's so much blood. It's a horror scene. It's very disturbing. But then she's like walking around the bed and notices on the nightstand a water ring. She takes a lot of time noticing the details of this water ring, how old it is, that it seems unnatural because of how clean their house is and stuff like that. And I just found it extremely awkward because the rest of the scene in the room was like, oh, everything's normal except for the blood. There has to be other things on the bedside tables. There has to be anything dropped on the floor. What does the bed even look like? Is it just like a made bed with blood? Is it dripping down the side? Is it on the pillows? Is the comforter rumpled up? Like they didn't spend a lot of time giving more details of like the bloody scene. Something that the grandmother said is that like he had a watch and some other like little things. But where were they sitting? Are they on a dresser? Are they on the bedside table? Like these are a lot of details that were not in this. One thing though, my copy is actually an ARC. So, but I believe that the ARCs are supposed to be pretty much finished except for maybe just editing other things. I feel like this is too much to be missing from an ARC. Beyond that, okay, so then she carries on and goes downstairs to speak and do the interviews with the family. She does make note that the rest of the family is like dressed, like they are wearing like ironed slacks and they look really polished and like they're dressed for the day. Meanwhile, the girlfriend doesn't seem to belong and she looks properly ragged. She's been crying and she's still wearing all of her bloody clothes. I just find this scene very interesting. They are speculating what has potentially happened. With all that kind of blood, he's not making it very far. So he probably isn't going to live long if he's walking around wounded. Potentially a stabbing. And I'm thinking to myself, the way they describe the scene, it's like there's just a puddle of blood on the bed and like there's no other sign. They're not making note of any other signs with that they're even looking for drops of blood, bloody footprints. Like other than the bed, it seems like everything is clean. Now this could be intentional that someone went and cleaned it or it's been staged and maybe that's where we're going. But it just seems awkward to me that they're not even like looking or making note that this is too clean. Where is the rest of the blood? I don't know if this is an error of writing or if it's intentional and it's all going to make sense. All right, I got my hair cut. I really love it. I was hoping to get some highlights and stuff. Like I had this picture that I took in. But when I made my appointment, I was like, I don't know what you can do with the old color. Like if they could lift it. I heard that sometimes they can do that. I don't really know. So, but they were like, no, this is like box color and we would destroy your hair trying to lift it. So it's better to let it grow. But, once I got my hair cut and now that it's all curled and stuff, I'm actually loving that my hair is still this like really dark green because especially with the curls, like it's actually making the green kind of little green pops of green. So it actually comes out like really, really good. So I like it. I'm actually glad that I didn't get it highlighted now. Anyways, we're not here to talk about my hair. We are here to talk about Death in the Family. We are up to page 55 now. And there's something else. Okay, I found something else about this book that makes it really kind of awkward. So I just figured out how to explain it. Okay, so she's doing her detective work, okay? Like she's questioning people. But then we get to these points where it's kind of like they're explaining why a detective uses specific techniques, like a how-to guide. And I don't know. Okay, to me it feels awkward. Maybe it's not awkward. I don't know. I have read one Sherlock Holmes and they didn't explain the method to his madness. I'm just saying, it sounds awkward. Okay, so got to interview this witness. I'm just going to read it to you, and you can help me decide if it sounds awkward. Walk me through it anyway, the whole day. Give me every detail that you remember. I crossed my legs and leaned back into the chair to make it clear that I expected a long story. Flynn glared at me, sighed, and then started to talk. Fair enough, right? I feel like that should have been the end of that. That's understandable. We can infer why a detective would do that. We don't need an explanation, but interviewing a witness effectively hinges on the series of questions designed to draw out the who, what, where, when, and why of a crime. I let them do most of the talking to keep interruptions to a minimum. Some people call that free recall. It's a good way to tap a person's memory of the time frame in question. A kind of stream of consciousness exercise that helps me extract the details I need with as much accuracy as possible. Cooperative witnesses do well with this, and I usually come out with answers. But here's the problem. I didn't yet know if Flynn was a witness or a suspect in this brother's disappearance. Everything he told me could be a truthful recollection of the events that might help us find Jasper. On the other hand, the entire story I was about to hear, every word of it, could be expertly crafted lie. Like, that entire last part was completely unnecessary. Like, we know these things. I don't think this book is going very well. This isn't even the first time it's happened. This has happened a few times, and it really kind of takes you out of the story. I feel at this late of a stage in an arc, would they cut that from the narrative before the final publication? I want to stick with it just a little bit longer, but if it keeps up at this pace, I think I'm just going to get really frustrated with it. Okay, I've officially DNF'd the Death in the Family book. It was just not getting any better. I did sort of like skim ahead and flip it more towards the back just to see if we were getting anywhere. Would you believe we were still interviewing somebody like 110 pages later? So, and the tone and everything still seemed the same. So I'm glad I DNF'd that one. So I did go ahead and move on to the next book on the same card. And that was The Gravedigger's Daughter. I'm also nervous that this one is not going very well. This is kind of the point of this whole thing, though. So it's okay. It's completely okay. You know, it kind of pushed me into deciding whether or not it's something I could read or not. The prologue is amazing. It starts out crazy. The first line. In animal life, the weak are quickly disposed of. He'd been dead for 10 years, buried in mangled parts for 10 years, unmourned for 10 years. You would think that she, his adult daughter, a man's wife now, and the mother of her own child, would be rid of him by now. But goddamn, she had tried. She hated him. It goes on and on. Obviously, she does not have a good relationship with her father, who apparently was a gravedigger, I guess. And the prologue is like a page and a half. No, I guess in total it's like a page. But then we get into chapter 1, and it is no joke. 15 pages of her walking and being afraid of some man following her. And granted, she is kind of given like little glimpses into her life with her husband, but it's kind of super repetitive in the way that like her husband wouldn't like that, her husband wouldn't like that. And then the story about like how some girl drowned and like now she's afraid that could be her, and like I don't know, it's droning. It's droning on. I'm 20 pages in and I'm like losing it. I could barely make it through a page before like my brain is like disconnected. That's not a good sign. I don't doubt that she's not a really good writer, and like I'm intrigued to know like what's it like growing up as a gravedigger's daughter, but I'm not 100% sure that that's even what this book is going to be about. I almost just kind of feel like it's going to be just an epic of her life. with this man. I know she's a factory worker and she has a 3-year-old son. And her husband doesn't seem to be like around. He's off working somewhere else and isn't home every night. I guess she's kind of taken this, sorry, it's like 1950s, and she's taking this job. She's got like a secret job or something that I guess she feels that she needs to do to take care of her son, which kind of makes sense if her dad's not there. You got to do what you got to do, right? I don't know. She also has this like kind of loathing for women she finds weak, and that's the kind of like feminist agenda that I really don't vibe with very well. I mean, I get it though, like to a point I really get it, but like as long as it doesn't go too far. I mean, it's great to be able to take care of yourself and have that pride and that confidence. But like you don't have to like hate other women just because they're not as tough as you or whatever. And like I get that, I got that chip on her shoulder, which I don't really like. I'm gonna give this book a little while longer. Literally, if it's just gonna be like her life and her husband and like her trials and tribulations, I don't know if it's gonna be the book that I was expecting or that I really want. Maybe I'll look at some reviews too. Oh, I didn't mean to have this in the background, but that's my family. I love that picture so much. Anyways, this was a bust. This was terrible. It just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. It's not a bad book, okay? But I just don't, it's just a lot. I feel like, so I read some reviews and a lot of people say the exact same thing. One of my favorite reviews is something to the extent of 35 pages, we're still walking down the street. I'm reading to find out what happens at the end of the walk. She gets home. I'm like, yeah, that's true though. Anyways, it seemed really like, other things that I've read too is it's not really about being a grave digger's daughter. A lot of people are really like reading between those lines about, you know, this is about her womanhood and things like that. I don't know. I do know that like I guess Joyce Carol Oates really writes for that feminist thing, which I know I keep saying these things like I'm not a feminist, but like I'm not like the man-hating feminist, and I feel like this book is really kind of airing already. It's already said a couple of things where it's like she's just unreasonably afraid of this man. And maybe she does have a reason, and I have to read the book to find out why. I don't know. It's about a character who just like hates women, denies femininity, and then she doesn't like seem to have like a lot of patience for people who aren't as tough as her. Anyways, we're done. That's a bust, but because that happened in like an hour, I think I'm gonna go ahead and pick another one from the jar. A green or a gray? I don't know how I feel about this one. Okay, one of them's Ton of French. I just don't think I'm in the mood for mystery. I think the other one just like burnt mystery for me. So we're gonna go with Special Topics in Calamity. All right, let's go find the book. Special Topics in Calamity. Okay, it should be around here somewhere. I don't have a light in here right now. All right, it doesn't help me if I can't find the dang books. Oh, what was the other one? By the Ton of French, because they're all like right next to each other. So where's the Ton of French book? It should be right here. Oh my God. This book is actually kind of big, but I was really excited about this one. I forgot what this one was about. Calamity Physics, the resulting explosion of energy, light, heartbreak, the wonder of Blue Van Meer enters a small elite school in a sleepy mountain town. Blue's highly unusual past draws her to a charismatic group of friends at St. Galloway, a captivating teacher, Hannah Schneider, a sudden drowning, a series of inexplicable events, and finally the shocking death of Hannah herself lead to a confluence of mysteries. It's a mystery. That's okay.
Blue is left to make sense of it all with only her gimlet-eyed instinct and cultural lexicon to guide her. I don't know if I'm in the mood for this. I have to do it. I have to do it. I have to stop giving myself these like excuses. Sorry. I've had a little bit of a stressful afternoon here. Anyways, I was editing this video and I realized that the whole first portion of this video is really bad quality and the audio is really messed up on it. So I'm really sorry about that. And now the heater has just kicked on right above me. So I apologize if you hear that. An update about this book, Calamity of Physics. Topics in Calamity Physics. Sorry, this is such a mouthful, I swear. Okay. I'm actually really enjoying this book. So I'm about 54 pages in, and I don't want to rush this book. I'm glad that I actually picked this up. I did think it was quite intimidating, and I think that if I hadn't have been pushed to continue on with it, it would have been really, I don't think I would have carried on, just because it's a much different writing style. How do I want to explain this? This is kind of hard to explain. It's a very unique and quirky style of writing. It's intentionally like humorous. I wouldn't say it's like laugh out loud humorous, but it's very engaging in the way, like just kind of enjoying the unique way that she has of describing different things. The thing that is kind of deterring me is the fact that there's a lot of parentheses. There's like a lot of extra explanation within parentheses to kind of highlight different things. She uses parentheses for a lot of different things. If you really like more like academic writing, you would probably appreciate that. Sometimes I appreciate it, and sometimes I find that it's just a little too much. Every single chapter is actually like named after a book. For example, Wuthering Heights, the portrait of an artist as a young man. So far, each chapter has kind of read like a short story. I finally just got to a part of page 54 where it looks like we are going to meet Hannah, which we know from reading the back of the book that she is integral to our main character's life experience and stuff like that, and she kind of jump starts, I guess, like this mystery and stuff. So that's kind of got me engaged in the plot. Finally, there was a part at the very beginning, about page 25. I felt that this was really fluffed up with just a lot of name dropping, classic lit references, and you still get a lot of that ongoing. It's kind of more like conversations with her dad. Everything can like relate to some sort of literary character or reference. Sometimes I feel like some of the references kind of go over my head just because like I can infer that they're obviously referencing something, but sometimes I don't quite follow along with that reference. Like, because each of the chapters are kind of following different, they're named after a book, right? So I kept thinking that at least with the ones that I have read, I kind of compare to see if lessons learned within that chapter have anything to do or relate to that book in any way. And a couple of them I felt that they did. Like Wuthering Heights, I know that story, so I could see where the reference material was going. Some of the other ones, like The House of the Seven Gables, I have not read that. I don't really know how that would relate, but I did understand that like with the chapter, we're really talking about like the excitement of moving into this new house and kind of having a you could kind of maybe, anyways, I just thought it was a really interesting way to kind of write a book. And so far I think that's really interesting. Like, for example, with the Wuthering Heights chapter, I found myself like looking for different things that would relate back to Wuthering Heights, and that made that chapter really like a fun experience to read in that manner. Or just like Not really knowing anything about the story at this point yet, that kind of made that chapter kind of fun. As far as the writing style so far, here's one thing that I found that was really funny, and there's a lot of them in here. Dad picked up women the way certain wool pants can't help but pick up lint. For years, I had a nickname for them, though I feel a little guilty using it now. June bugs. And then in parenthesis, she says, C, fig eater beetle, ordinary insects, volume 21. So there's like reference material like that thrown in, making it feel like a lot more of an academic work as well. So it's kind of interesting. Something that's kind of cool too is there's actually like some illustrations in here to kind of illustrate different parts. This is supposed to be her dad. Like literally at the bottom it says visual aid 2.2. So I think that that's all that I want to say about this at this time. I wanted to just kind of wrap up this video because I do want to take my time with this book, and I do like, hopefully I will be able to finish in the next month or two. And on that note, I will probably do another one of the January. We'll see where I'm at with other things that I'm reading. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye.